Hello, my name is Barbara Leland, and I'm a certified holistic health coach in Huntington Beach, and I do the healthy eating classes here at Hoag Cancer Center. So Happy New Year and Happy New You. Today we're going to talk about sugar again. We've talked about it before, and we talked about it before, and I think we even talked about it before. But we're still craving it after all these years. So let's find out why and why we shouldn't. So again, it's this new year, same resolution, 2022, and we're still battling it. So why does it have such a hold on us? It is an addiction. And, you know, as any addiction, when you have a little bit of it, that addiction comes back. You quit it, and then you have a little bit. If you ever smoked, which I hope you didn't, but if you ever smoked, and then you quit, you know that if you have a cigarette, you're going to be right back there, right? Or if you have had an addiction to alcohol, you don't have a little bit sometimes, right? It's an addiction. So same with sugar. It can come right back into our lives. And a lot of us feel that it's come back right into our lives, especially after this whole COVID period, and then Christmas hit us, and here we are talking about sugar. So there are a few reasons why it has such a hold on us, and there are some physiological reasons. One of those reasons is your body needs sugar for energy. It's what makes us reboot. We need our cells and our whole body functions on having sugar for energy. Also, the way it happens is that you take in the food, you chew it up, digest it, and when you digest it, the food turns into glucose. It goes into your system and goes into your cells. The insulin takes the glucose and puts it into your cells, and your cells use that glucose for fuel. And that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. But there's a difference between the types of sugars that our body needs and the type of sugars that our body gets. So the complex carbs, this is what we want to have in our system for energy. They digest very slowly. That's in fruits and vegetables, grains, nuts, seeds, beans, things like that. All of those great foods are complex carbs, and they do have sugars, natural sugars, and that's what your body needs for fuel. On the other side, the simple carbs, those are the things that go through your system quickly. They raise your blood sugar quickly. They drop your blood sugar deeply. And these are not the things that are going to help you. These are added sugars. Okay, it's not the same as natural sugars. These are things that have added sugars. And beyond that, they're processed to the point where everything's been taken out of them. So even if we're talking about white flour also, we don't have the complexity, we don't have the fiber to help us process the sugar that's just in the white flour, okay? But sugar itself, white sugar, everything's gone except for the sugar. So that is really going to go through your system quickly, and it's going to cause you to have a sugar high and a sugar low, and we're going to have problems. So other reasons that you might have a craving for sugar, and if you have any of these reasons, or if you think you may have any of these reasons, talk to your doctor. Diabetes type 1 can cause sugar cravings, so if you're having those cravings and you do have diabetes type 1, do talk to your doctor about that. Medications, certain medications can cause sugar cravings because of things that they do in our system. So, you know, the medication affects one thing and then something else pops up. Talk to your doctor if you're having sugar cravings, or if you think that that sugar craving might be caused by your medication. And then also when your hormones are out of whack, that can cause sugar cravings as well. Any of these things you really need to talk to your doctor about. Okay. Then there are psychological reasons as well. And among the top 3 would be anxiety, depression, and stress. And they all kind of go together, don't they? So the reason why that you get a craving for sugar is because of the way the sugar reacts in your system. So there are certain chemicals that make you happy. Serotonin is a mood stabilizer, and it is the most sensitive to the diet more than any other neurotransmitter. And dopamine is a chemical that's released during pleasurable situations. So what happens is when you have a binge on a simple carbohydrate, sugar, that increases your serotonin, so your mood gets stabilized, you feel happier, and it influences your dopamine activity. So you're getting that pleasure reward. So that's kind of hard to beat, serotonin and dopamine. It's the same kind of situations that happen when you're taking drugs, as a matter of fact. But you can increase your serotonin and dopamine in other ways. It doesn't have to be drugs or sugar. And we can talk about that later. But what I'm telling you here is that the reason why the craving comes along is because this is how it reacts in your system. So you go on a sugar roller coaster. Your serotonin goes up. You take in sugar. Your serotonin goes up, your endorphins, your blood sugar goes up, your energy rises because that's what it's for, and your mood lifts. And that's when your insulin comes in and spikes. As the insulin takes the sugar, takes the glucose, and puts it into the cells, your sugar decreases. So you're going like this. If you're doing it slowly, it's not going to be this roller coaster. But if you're doing the sugar, the processed sugar, it's going to be a high, a low, a high, a low. So your sugar decreases quickly, you crash, you get fatigued, you get brain fog, and you have more sugar cravings because you want to get back to that high. So you're on this roller coaster. And short term, that's bad enough short term, isn't it? But long-term effects are weight gain, hormone imbalance, insulin resistance, and inflammation issues. And we're going to talk about that more later, but that's very important. And if you're not on the roller coaster, then you can be on the merry-go-round. This is the same situation. It's just a little bit differently explained so that you can really get this cycle. So you eat the sugar, you like it, you crave it, you want more. It has addictive properties. Your blood sugar levels spike, like we said, and then the dopamine is released in the brain. And the blood sugar starts to drop because of the insulin taking the glucose and distributing it among the cells. And then your insulin is high, especially when you're taking in a lot of sugar. Your insulin is high because it's trying to match the amount of sugar that you're taking in. And so it gets stored. If it goes to energy and the rest of it gets stored. And it can be stored for later energy, but also it can be stored as fat. And then the body craves that lost sugar high. And so you go back to it, you have hunger, and you have cravings. And that's your cycle. Okay, so now it's the same as that roller coaster, but this is showing you in a little different way. The cycle is repeated. So, and we're going to have a lot of information coming up. So make sure that if you have any questions, you go ahead and type them in the chat. I'll answer them as quickly as I can. Don't worry about trying to take notes because these screens, this PowerPoint is all, it's posted underneath the heading. You'll see a link for the PowerPoint and you can download that if you haven't already. So you don't need to write all this down, okay? Or take screenshots. So, what happens when we have too much sugar? We have chronic inflammation. It affects our gut flora. If you were here for my seminar a couple of times back, we talked about the gut and how important the gut flora was, the good bacteria, bad bacteria. So this affects your gut flora. It causes insulin resistance. It affects your cholesterol. It can suppress your immune system and all of these things that we're talking about, the inflammation, etc., especially the inflammation, all of these things affect our cancer risk and more. So we're going to discuss each one of these items. So sugar and inflammation. And we're talking again about simple carbs, high in processed sugar. So simple carbs or processed sugar increases inflammation. It causes inflammation within the cells of the blood vessels, and that causes a risk of heart disease. So it can impair the anti-inflammatory effects of omega-3 fatty acids. So you're taking all these great things for your system. You're probably taking some omega-3 supplements, or you're eating plenty of fish, walnuts, flax seeds. You're doing all the things that you should be doing, and then you're eating sugar. And it's like throwing it out the door. It's like wasting your money, because this impairs the anti-inflammatory effects of the omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants, by the way, as well. It increases levels of uric acid. Now, this is usually when you're consuming soda or sugared drinks. That increases the levels of uric acid. That drives inflammation and insulin resistance, but also that has that can present as gout. And so you can see how the uric acid, that would really increase gout. Chronic inflammation can lead to an increased risk of cancer, as we know. We've talked about that many times. So any questions at all about sugar and inflammation? Okay. So this is what inflammation does. We have acute inflammation. Acute inflammation is, you cut your hand, your hand swells up, you break a bone, your hand swells up, you have a bacteria, you get a sore throat, your throat gets a little red and inflamed. That's chronic, that's acute inflammation. That's temporary. That's a reaction to something that is going to go away. It's your body fighting that something, whatever it is, the infection, the trauma, the allergy, whatever it is, your body's fighting it. But when your body has to fight on a regular basis, such as sugar on a regular basis, you get chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is inflammation that is in your system on a regular, all the time. And that leads to cardiovascular disease, neurological disease, autoimmune disease. You can read these yourselves. Cancer, fibromyalgia, etc. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have chronic inflammation. So sugar in the gut. Like I said, we talked about the gut flora a couple of seminars ago. And if you ever want to go back and look at one of the seminars before, they're on the Hogue channel, but also they're on my website, and you can just look at them there. It's called Videos, and you'll see it on my website. So one of the most important, your gut has good and bad bacteria, as we know, and the good bacteria keeps the bad bacteria down, right? And one of the most good bacteria in the gut is something I can't pronounce, so I just call it B theta. And what B theta does is it takes the fiber from the foods you're eating, it ferments it, and that allows the nutrients to be used. That's very important. But when you have high sugar consumption, that stops the production of a protein that this good bacteria needs, and then the amount of this good bacteria decreases. So what happens is, here's this good bacteria working in your gut to keep everything in balance, keep it all clean and working right, keep the food getting fermented so you get your nutrients, and then you eat too much sugar. And you eat too much sugar and the protein stops being produced. This good bacteria dies. And there's more of it is not created, and so the bad bacteria takes over. So your gut bacteria is imbalanced. You're going to have problems from that as well. And that will cause more sugar cravings too, and leads to inflammation in the gut, which that like I said, that's more, there are more problems down the road and more risk of disease. So that's how the sugar and the gut is impacted. So sugar and insulin resistance. So when the systems are working fine, then you take in your carbohydrates that, like I said before, they're broken down into sugar, which goes into the blood in the form of glucose. Your blood sugar levels rise. The pancreas produces insulin at that point. And then the insulin unlocks the cells and uses that sugar into the cells for energy or storage, if you have enough energy, or storage in the liver. Sugar goes into the cells. Blood sugar and insulin levels decrease because it's taken out of the blood. The lower insulin levels alert the liver to release the stored blood sugar, and then the energy is available, even if you haven't eaten. So that's how it works when everything is working correctly, when you're not overloading it with sugar. When it's out of whack, then too much sugar enters the bloodstream. You get high blood sugar levels. The pancreas is working hard to put out more insulin to get the blood sugar into the cells. And then over time, the cells stop responding. They don't get unlocked by that insulin, and they become insulin resistant. And then the pancreas keeps making more insulin to try to make the cells respond. And eventually, the pancreas can't keep up, and the blood sugar keeps rising. And then you have diabetes. So you don't want that to happen. And the reason that happens is because we're overloading our system with sugar. So sugar also affects your cholesterol. I know you've heard of things that you eat can affect your cholesterol. It's not as much about some of the natural foods that you're eating, you know, like that hard-boiled egg or milk or whatever it is that you're having that has some fat in it that you might be concerned about the cholesterol. Sugar plays a large part in your cholesterol. And through the liver, the LDL goes up. The LDL is your good cholesterol. The HDL goes down. The LDL is your bad cholesterol. The HDL goes down, which is your good cholesterol, and your triglycerides are increased. So all of this leads to high cholesterol, okay? High bad cholesterol. And how does it play a part on our immunity? So we have white blood cells that work to destroy bacteria, viruses, etc. There are little soldiers, little white cell soldiers. And when you take in sugar, it weakens your white blood cells' ability to protect you against these bacteria and viruses, etc. And the amount of sugar you take in, the more you take in, the less bacteria is destroyed. So you can see on this little chart, 0 to 24 teaspoons of sugar and 14 bacterias compared to 1 bacteria destroyed. So your ability to fight off infection is weakened based on your sugar consumption. So what happens then is your lowered immunity lasts about 5 hours. So let's say you have a piece of cake and you come into contact with a virus. Your chances in that 5-hour time is greater. Your chances are greater to be infected with that virus based on the fact that your white blood cells are not able to protect you as well. Okay, so you say, okay, well, in 5 hours I'll be fine. Yeah, but remember, you're eating sugar throughout the day. It may not be a donut, and we'll talk about that later. It may be something you don't even realize has sugar. So you want to make sure that your immunity is strong, especially now, and so the sugar is going to impair that. And then cancer. And we've all heard how sugar feeds cancer cells. That's true. All cells are fed by sugar. all cells depend on glucose for energy. And more sugar doesn't make cancer grow faster, and less sugar doesn't make it grow more slowly. But what it does do is sugar increases inflammation, and inflammation increases the risk of cancer and affects our ability to fight cancer and other diseases. So again, I know that we've all heard about how sugar feeds cancer, but it's true, but it's not exactly as it sounds, okay? So you don't want to eat sugar when you have cancer. You don't want to eat sugar ever, but this is the reason why. It's not because sugar actually goes straight to the cancer cells only. No, it goes to all the cells. So I'm saying too much. Well, how much is too much? I can never eat a grain of sugar again? No, that's not necessarily so. So for men, no more than 9 teaspoons or 38 grams. 38 grams. Women, no more than 6 teaspoons, 25 grams. Sorry, women, I know men, they get that too. And then children, less than 6 teaspoons and 25 grams. How many kids do you know? They probably hit that at their breakfast, right? So we aren't doing our children any favors by giving them cereals with sugar in them, giving them processed foods that have sugar in it. They are eating way more than 25 grams. The average American child is eating way more than 25 grams of sugar per day. And what's happening, I'm sure you've heard how childhood diabetes is on the rise. Type 2, not type 1, type 2. Type 1 is different, but type 2 is caused by food and what you eat and your lifestyle. So this is how much is too much, and that's from the American Heart Association. And I have a question here. About how long after avoiding added sugar would it take to repair insulin resistance? I don't know, actually. It would depend on your system, what else you're doing. It's more complicated than that, and I don't have an answer for that question. It really depends on so many factors. So 1 teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams, and that's level, not a heaping teaspoon. So that's how you can calculate it if you're actually adding sugar to anything that you're eating. 1 teaspoon is, for women, it's almost your whole day's worth. So watching your added sugar is important, but also you want to know about the naturally occurring sugars because that's important too. Now we talked about naturally occurring sugars before in complex carbs, but let's talk about that. Let's visit that a little bit more. Added sugar is something that's added to foods during processing. So like any processed foods you have, not any processed, but many processed foods that you have is going to contain some amount of added sugar. Cooking, if you're baking or you're making a dish and you add sugar to it, that's added sugar. Honey, maple syrup, even those good sugars, they are still counted as added sugar. Or before eating. So like if you're sitting down and you're having some oatmeal, for example, and it's not sweet enough because oatmeal isn't very sweet, and then you add sugar to it. That's added sugar. Natural sugar is sugar that occurs in your fruits, your vegetables, your beans, grains, just like we said before. So in whole, unprocessed foods, okay? But when I was saying before about you want to be careful about natural sugars as well, so take a look at this chart. If we're having an orange, that has natural sugars. It has 10 to 13 grams of natural sugars from a medium orange. And it goes through your system in a nice, slow, controlled way. It has the fiber, that slows down the processing of the sugar. So that's what you want. But you take that same orange and you juice it. Well, you're going to juice a few more than that. and you end up with a 16-ounce glass of orange juice, which is kind of a lot of orange juice, I think, at one time. But let's say you end up with a 16-ounce glass of orange juice. That's 48 grams of sugar. It's not added sugar because it's naturally occurring, but it's still going, it's been separated from the orange, from the fiber and all the other things that help it process slowly in your system. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a rapid blood sugar spike and then a fall, a crash. And then you take that same orange, kind of, and you turn it into an orange soda, which probably you have 10% juice maybe, and the rest of it is artificial flavors and sugars, carbonation, etc. That has 58 grams of sugar in 16 ounces. And again, that has a rapid blood sugar spike and fall. Kind of the same as the orange juice, but it has even more because there's more sugar. But it's important to see about juicing. I know juicing is popular, and I do like to juice, but I am more of a fan of juicing vegetables, cucumbers, lemons, things like that. I might add a little bit of apple if I'm doing something like kale, because that is pretty bitter and might be kind of hard to drink down a glass of kale juice. And then going on, a diet orange soda, well, that has 0 grams. So maybe you're going to say, hey, that's great. That's great. It has 0 grams of sugar. I can have that. Yeah, you could because it's not added sugars. However, that may still alter how your body reacts to sugar, because what happens when we remember that everything starts in the mouth, the body, you have taste buds, and they're not just there for your pleasure. We thought they were, but no. They're there for a reason. So when you take something into your mouth, you're starting your digestion. And that signals your body what's happening by the taste buds. And when you have sugar, it starts the process of getting your body ready to take that sugar and process it. When you have a diet sugar, it recognizes sweet, and that may affect your insulin and how your pancreas reacts to sweetness and to insulin, how your body puts out insulin, okay? Just by the taste of the sweet in your mouth. So we want to be careful with added sugars, and we also want to be careful with alternate sweeteners. We had a seminar probably about a year ago on sugar, and we talked a lot about alternate sweeteners. We're not going to talk too much about them today, but just do realize that they may affect you as well. I have a question here. If you are going to eat a little simple sugar, does it make sense to eat it with your meal because the other food might help the insulin from spiking so much? Yes, it does. That helps, especially if you're eating things with a lot of fiber in them. Protein can help. So yes, it does help to have it with something else, not just a candy bar. Okay? Even though a candy bar might be the only thing you want, it does help to eat sugar with other things. So back to talking about that orange juice. The concentrated sugar in 1 glass of orange juice is equivalent to that many oranges, and that's 5 spoons of sugar. So if we go back, 48 grams, and we do the calculation, how many, 4 times 5, I don't know. But there we go. That's how many teaspoons of sugar in 1 glass of orange juice, and how many oranges it takes to make that glass of orange juice, okay? So what about hidden sugar? It's one thing when we say, I'm going to have a piece of candy, I'm going to have a piece of cake, I'm going to have a cookie. You know you're eating sugar. I'm going to take some ice cream, whatever. All those things, you know you're eating sugar. Okay, at least you know what you're doing, right? But what about when you don't know that you're getting sugar? So things like yogurt. Now, if you get plain yogurt, of course, the only sugar that's going to be in there is the sugar from the milk, and that's lactose, and that's processed slowly in your system the way it should be. But if you get strawberry yogurt or a delicious coconut yogurt, you're gonna find, unless it's unsweetened, you're gonna have sugar in that yogurt. What about energy bars? Sugar. What about ketchup or barbecue sauce? We already talked about the orange juice. Dressings. Dressings contain sugar. Not all of them, of course, but many of them. Breads, packaged processed breads, you're going to find sugar in many of them. Dried fruits have increased sugar, and sometimes they have added sugar, such as craisins. So cranberries, which we just came out of the time when we'd be using a lot of cranberries, right? Cranberries, you dry a cranberry, and you're probably not going to just want to eat that, just a plain cranberry. You're going to want to have it sweet, like a raisin. Well, cranberries don't have sugar. So they have to add sugar to the cranberry to make it a craisin. And the other fruits as well, besides the sulfur that they add for dried fruits often, you're also going to have concentrated sugar just from the natural sugar, and they may add hidden sugar, other sugars as well. So you do want to be careful of things that processed foods that you're buying, and you may not realize that they have sugar in them. So what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do to watch your sugar? Well, become a label reader. So we've talked about this before for many, many different items, different things that we're trying to clean up in our diet. And again, being a label reader is going to indicate the amount of sugar that we're getting, the amount of natural sugar and the amount of added sugar. And I think it was like 2 years ago that they started putting how much sugar and how much added sugar is in the food. So this item, 1 serving is 2/3 cup. I'm not sure what this item is. I would imagine that this is a yogurt of some sort. But 2/3 of a cup, total sugar is 12 grams. But that includes 10 grams of added sugar. So no, this is not a yogurt. 10 grams of added sugar. So that's very important. That's where you want to look. What is the added sugar? Okay? And another thing is you want to make sure you get enough sleep, because if sugar is our source of energy and we're tired, you're going to crave sugar. And I'm sure you've all felt this. You're tired, you didn't get enough sleep the night before. All of a sudden you start getting a craving for sugar, right? Candy bar, chocolate, something that's going to lift you up. Caffeine from the chocolate and sugar. That combination is going to lift you up. So try to get 7 to 9 hours per night. It varies per person, but 7 to 9 hours is recommended for adults. And that is really important for keeping your energy levels up. And I do have another question here. Where can we find bread without so much added sugar? Anywhere you're shopping, you're going to find, in today's world, we're lucky because we have healthy products next to not so healthy products. So in the market, you're going to find options. Just read your labels, Read your labels, and you're going to find options for breads that are made without added flavors, artificial flavors, with whole grains, and you're going to find breads that don't have added sugar. Look especially at sourdough. That is the sourdough itself is a better bread for you, and usually they don't add sugar to that. So look at some nice, good, maybe whole grain sourdoughs and see what you can find. Also, if you're shopping at Whole Foods or Sprouts or things like that, you're probably going to have a better selection of breads without sugar. But don't think that just because you're shopping at a health food store that everything's clean, because it isn't. And sugars can also be in the form of honey and maple syrup. And if we're trying to control, not that I think that those sugars are as bad as processed sugar, But if we're trying to control our sugar intake, we want to be careful of those sugars as well, because they do react in your body, not as bad as processed sugar, but they do react in your body as added sugars. You want to stay hydrated, because dehydration can also lead to sugar cravings. And you want to make sure that you stay hydrated before you get thirsty, because once you get thirsty, you're already there. So you have to work harder to get undehydrated. So stay hydrated. And then you want to eat plenty of sweet fruits and vegetables. Keep your energy level up by having your complex carbohydrates. And that will help you a lot. And there was something else I wanted to tell you about this. When we're talking about the added sugars, again, it could be in the form of, like I said, honeys or maple syrups or natural sugars, but they're still added. And also, when you're trying to avoid sugars, you really don't know what you're getting when you go out to eat, right? You can go to the market and you can label read everything, and you can decide what you're buying, what you're not buying. You go sit down at a restaurant, you can tell them no salt, no this, no that, but you don't know what kind of products they're using. So you could be getting sugars in things that you're not even aware of. So be careful of that. If you eat out a lot, you really have to be a little bit more careful of that as well. Know the things that might have hidden sugars in them. So, okay, complex carbs. And also, it's good to get a friend on board, your spouse, your friend, whoever, someone to help you stay on track. Maybe they want to do the same thing. And if that's the case, you're going to have a support system. So see if your friends or your spouse would like to do this with you, or find a health coach like me and get some help to get through this sugar challenge. Speaking of sugar challenge, I'm leading a sugar challenge, a 21-day sugar challenge. We'll have no added sugar, starting on Monday, and on the 17th. And it's free, so join me on Facebook if you'd like to join the sugar challenge. And you can reach out to me on my email if that's something you'd like to do. So the bottom line is, do not stress, just do your best. I know, hokey, but really don't stress about it, because that's going to cause your sugar craving to go up. Do the best that you can. Whatever you do, once you're aware of it, whatever you do is better than what you were doing yesterday, right? So don't stress about it, do your best, and get the sugar out of your diet. And if there are any other questions, if you have questions after the fact, you can reach me at 2life-2health@hotmail.com. My website is www.2life-2health.com, and that's where you'll find your past videos, and also you can email me if you want to join that 21-day challenge. Is it unhealthy to avoid intaking sugar daily or on a weekly basis? I'm not sure I understand that question. Is it unhealthy to avoid intaking sugar daily? If you can type in some clarification on that question, because I'm not understanding it. It's not unhealthy to avoid intaking sugar. That's good. So here comes something else. Would restaurants tell you if you ask them how much sugar is in the dishes that you order? They may not know, because think about it, you're reading the labels of your ingredients, of your items that you're buying. What about ingredients? Let's say they're adding, I don't know, pimentos. Are they reading the jar to look at the sugar? They're not going to be able to tell you how much sugar is in a dish, because they can say, oh no, there's no added sugar, but they don't they don't take a teaspoon and add sugar in it, right? So I'd say no, they would not be able to. What about sucralose? Sucralose is a, gosh, what is sucralose? Sucralose is a artificial sweetener, is it not? I don't have information about sucralose. Yeah, I don't have information about sucralose, but if you want more information, email me and I'll get it for you. What are some quick, healthy snacks to avoid sugar cravings? Well, fruit. Fruit helps a lot, especially like at night. I don't know about you, but my sugar craving comes about 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. A banana is great for that. Right now, oranges are very sweet, delicious. Things like that will help. You also might take a little dairy. If you do dairy, some yogurt will help, maybe with a little fruit on top, cinnamon. Those are some things that will help. Nuts. Nuts are great for sugar cravings because they have a little bit of sugar in them themselves, natural sugar, plus the fat will help your sugar craving. Things like that will help, and but fruit really helps me a lot. And if it's really bad, I mean, if you're really just like, oh my God, I really need something sweet, have a nice fresh, not dried, but a nice fresh date. Dates are very sweet, but they are actually a fruit. So you don't overdo on them because there is a lot of sugar in them, but it's a natural sugar. You've got everything in the date to process that sugar, and it won't give you a sugar spike, but it will give you that certain something that you're looking for. Any clarification on that question? No. All right, well, email me, whoever wrote that question, email me about avoid intaking sugar daily. Okay? So, if there are no other questions, I will see you next Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and we'll do a cooking demo on a sweet treat that won't have any added sugar in it. Okay? So thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.